Hi, welcome everybody to the first in our six-part series about the state of business in Europe. The focus today is going to be on France, where we're going to do two things. We're going to first hear about an overview of how things are looking in France in general through the lens of the economic, health, and political environment there. And then secondly, we're going to focus on Station F, which is Europe's largest entrepreneurial hub. So we're joined today, first of all, I'm Jeff Lamont, the managing director at Terra Advisors. We've been in business for 12 years. We've helped more than 120 companies who have entered the European marketplace. We've worked with Ivan for more than 10 years. Ivan has been a consultant to companies when they're expanding their businesses, and for about 15 years, since 2006. He's worked for more than 25 companies in that time period. He mainly focuses on setting up business alliances with companies in the telco space in Europe, as well as the digital markets. He's based in Paris. He knows the French market very well. He's fluent in Spanish, so he can also focus in Spain and Latin America. And you'll hear from today's call, his English is also excellent. So he is essentially doing business all across Europe. So with that, I'll stop the screen share and we'll just go into the interview format where we're going to interview Ivan for about the next 20 minutes or 25 minutes on these topics that I outlined. So Ivan, thanks for coming to the call today, and we're excited to have you as our first panelist in the six-part series where we're going to cover 5 other countries in Europe, as well as today we're covering France. The first question I want to go to, and maybe you can tell me which segment you'd like to focus on first, but it's on the political, health, and economic situation in France. So maybe we'll start with the health situation, since that here on July 6th, 2020 is still very present on everyone's mind worldwide, given the pandemic. So maybe just let us know where things stand today and how it's developed over the past 4 or 5 months in France since the start of COVID-19.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff, for your invitation, and hello to everyone. So basically, yes, in France, we're still in the pandemic situation with an economy that is now recovering. I mean, gradually. We had a lockdown for 2 months between March and May, and now we're out of it. There's no second wave as it looks in other countries, and the number of deaths that we had, unfortunately, is almost reaching 30,000 and 164,000 cases. But things are starting to look much better now, and we're going back to work almost to normality.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, so it's obviously different things are happening in different countries around the world. So it's good to hear that. I mean, France took quite drastic measures, shutting things down. I think people were not able to travel more than a certain distance from their house. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We had a full, a very strong lockdown for those 2 months or 8 weeks exactly, and in which we had even to fill out a form if we were to go to work, or for any real serious reason, medical reason, or just to buy food, and otherwise you had a fine if you were out in outside your home. So it was very, very strict lockdown.
Yes. I mean, as I said, different governments have responded differently. Let's move into the economic sphere a bit. I mean, obviously everyone knows that France is a tourist destination. So I can only guess that that was one of the reasons that the government came with a very serious response, was that they realized that this tourism sector is a very important part of the economy. So what has been the economic impact, and what is the sort of the economic prognosis going forward?
Yeah, economic impact has been extremely strong. We had our activity rate went down to all the way down to 35% in March and April, which is extremely low, as you can imagine. As you were saying, we're a tourist. Well, one of the main sectors is tourism, with 15% approximately of our GDP. 95 million, almost 100 tourists last year, all the way down to almost zero. I mean, except for January, February. So we were extremely badly hit. 70% of our economy depends on services, and the other 30% is, mostly aerospace, train, luxury goods, cosmetics. So all sectors that have been awfully hit. So we had, we had a huge amount of helps from the government. Basically, 80% of all salaries from the private sector were paid for more than 3 months by the government, which is unheard of. And the 20% remaining, were paid by the companies themselves. Even today, some of the sectors are under this very privileged service support from the government. Our unemployment rate went from 8.5% to 12%. So like in the US, we have a wall of unemployment. 1 million people in less than a month and a half. If it was not for the social measures, it would have been a very strong rebellions in the street. In France, we've had the yellow jackets, I think you call them in English, les gilets jaunes, for 18 months, which is also something unheard of in the world. So we had the basis for, political unrest, social and political unrest. And thanks to those social laws, things are still rather quiet and reasonable, as we speak.
Yeah, that's good.
But our debt rate went up because of those helps from the government, from 90% of our GDP to 130%. So imagine, the Maastricht rules are exploded, but it's for most European countries the same. And of course, the situation created, a total instability. We have like two divisions. The Northern European countries, Scandinavia, Netherlands, Germany, mostly, are hit by half the percentage. So they're supposed to have -6 or -7% in 2020. We in Italy, France, and Spain, and even UK, which is the exception in the north. But anyway, UK is out of EU now with Brexit. So France, Italy, and Spain are the IMF experts think that it should reach -12%. So it's half. It's like there's two divisions within the EU, and this is creating some issues, of course, as you can imagine.
Yes. Yeah. So, let's lead to the political, and let's spend a couple of minutes on the political. The health and the business environment and the government support that you mentioned. All of this is not happening in a political vacuum. There's certainly things happening in the politics. So can you just give us an overview of just a couple of minutes about what's happening there?
Yes. Well, basically, we have a very young, charismatic leader who's supposed to be a centrist. So he comes from the left, from the Socialist Party, although France is not, well, it's seen sometimes as very lefty, but the Socialist Party has nothing to do with the real socialist countries. But anyway, he comes from the Socialist Party under Hollande. He was one of the ministers of Hollande, Ministry of Economics. But at the same time, he is seen as, by most people in France and, people in the street, as the président des riches, the president of the rich. So, there's this two these rumors, let's say, but anyway, it's not so true. He's not only working for the rich, but he's trying to be pragmatic, pro-business, and that's why sometimes it's seen as he's helping also the CEOs and the big companies. But anyway, as I was saying, he's very pro-business. He's really looking into making France as the new startup nation, and that's his terms. There's a series of laws, fiscal laws that are in favor of business. So he's been very, we've had a lot of, social unrest in the streets, protests from trade unions and the left wing. But at the same times, there are some factual, results that make him look and be a real pro-business president.
Okay, good. Yeah, so let's look at that. I mean, this is leading into this this whole topic of the Station F. So you're talking about that, Macron and France in general are becoming more business friendly. So many of our listeners today are people that are attending probably are not expecting that France is going to be the business friendly nation. So what have they been doing over the past years under Macron or even before that to become more welcoming?
Yeah, so Macron has done everything possible to make Station F happen, and he's actually the president that in June 2017 made the inauguration of the project Station F. He's passed a few laws that are very business friendly. Some are the loosening of some of the rules and policies around business. I was mentioning fiscal advantages. He's looking into selling off some of the government's assets like the lottery and the Paris airports to create a fund of 10 billion euros in favor of entrepreneur and more than business angel. It's like a real institution in France that is public, that is putting money into the public sector for startups. The social security system is being oriented towards also helping out entrepreneurs. For example, someone has a normal job within any company. He wants to launch his company, his startup, and he can simply stop working for that company and have the help, receiving around 70% of his last salary during 2 years, 18 months, so that he can focus on the creation of his company and the launch, and not think of money, So that's very positive. There are some very innovative solutions towards, working spaces where you can have a desk or an office for a very little amount of money in Paris, but also the major French cities at a real low cost. And even, the visa schemes have been changed so as to make them easier for entrepreneurs. So you're a migrant or even a refugee, and you can apply for the scheme if you can, of course, show that the idea is to launch in France your startup. And it went all the way even to offering some relocation schemes for companies from UK that wanted after Brexit to come back into EU and to land their business in France. So it's gone really far in the direction of entrepreneurs. And so factually, EY, Ernst & Young, has a barometer every year. And this year, 2019, it showed that France was a number one country in Europe for new projects, new businesses, with 1,200 projects, while UK that has always been the number one in the past was at 1,100 and Germany 900. So it's even giving real strong results in the short term. It's immediate, you know. So,
do you think that companies that are coming into France can expect that everyone needs to speak French, or what's the level of English? Because that's also a rumor that people have been hearing and dealing with over the years.
No, it's true, but you know, most companies that you work with will typically hire people from 20 to or 25 to 50. Anybody below 50 or 50 or below speaks English. You know, it's almost compulsory. You cannot even be hired in France by a purely French company if you don't speak English below 50. It's impossible. So, I mean, it's really rare. So, unless, some people maybe don't speak English, but they're not even hiring in French companies.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So we have about, let's say 10 to 12 minutes here. Let's talk about Station F. So what is this? What is it? What's the history of it? And how did it come into being? You mentioned it's that Macron inaugurated it in June 2017. So it's about 3 years ago. But
That's
so
right.
what's the history? What is it?
So originally it was a rail depot, you know, owned by SNCF, the French public company, railway public company, since 1929, I think. And it was not being used anymore by SNCF. So basically, you know, maybe you've heard of Xavier Niel, who's the founder, very successful entrepreneur, billionaire now, tycoon of the telco industry. He founded, you know, Iliad Group and Free Mobile, almost landed his business in the US when he tried to buy T-Mobile USA. And Xavier Niel basically invested 250 million euros into in this depot, so as to create I think it's 500,000 square feet, 50,000 square meters. That's right. Yeah. He created, you know, this immense, what is it called? It's like a business incubator for startups that can receive, you know, 1,000 startups. There's the biggest restaurant facilities in Europe or in the world. It's enormous. Of course, you know, VCs are present. There's 40 VCs present. There's programs for startups, whether it be through Xavier Niel's infrastructure or through the programs of Facebook and we'll come back to it, I'm sure, Microsoft, etc. So, I mean, there's 3,000 desks available, and you have to be selected to and go through, you know, their criteria to have the chance to launch your business from Station F, you know. So I think there's 600 rooms, a huge auditorium. It's a city within the city.
Yeah. You were mentioning that some of these big name companies are located there, so that have a presence there, let's say, like Facebook, Google, Apple. So what is the program? What are they doing there?
Yeah, they're basically, you know, there's 3 ways to apply. There's it's called the Founders Program, where you once you're selected, you pay 205 euros monthly, and you can launch your startup. There's the Fighters Program, that is a 1-year commitment program for people that are underprivileged. I mean, economically underprivileged, and who can even be. It's even for migrants or refugees, and there's several examples of that. And then there's the famous, you know, 30 startup programs that, you know, come from Facebook, who's dedicated to AI, because, you know, France is very strong in AI. So Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple have all a, you know, desks, a presence physical presence in Station F and select, any given entrepreneur who is talented enough they help him with their own AI infrastructures, technology. They have advisors that can help, and their physical presence and desks, of course. But so you have the GAFAMs, let's say, but you also have the banking sector with BNP Paribas, in the fintech and insurance industry. So if you're orienting your startup towards these two sectors, there's Ubisoft for the games, L'Oreal for the beauty industry, Avas Group for marketing and media, Thales in the cybersecurity, LVMH, for luxury, L'Oreal for cosmetics. Well, I already mentioned it. So anyway, it depends which sector you want to launch your startup in, and you can find the specific program with some real experts of the sector of the industry.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's I guess the benefits for the companies that are going to locate there. So one of them is certainly proximity to these blue chip technology companies that can help them. It's certainly just being as part of the ecosystem. Are there other benefits you would say for companies that are in the Station F?
Yeah, so not only you have the presence, the desk, at no charge or 200 euros per month, but of course you have access to all the meeting rooms, the printers, snacks, coffee, restaurants. The building is accessible 24/7, which is not so common in France or in Europe. I know in countries like US or Israel or very dynamic countries, younger countries, it's no biggie. But in Europe, it's with all our laws, it's very unusual. So it's 24/7. They have a series of campus events with top entrepreneurs, where you can, yourself as an entrepreneur, you can attend to. Of course, the coffee shop, bars. You have advisors and mentor sessions that you can attend to, free of charge, and of course, all that network, that ecosystem, that ecosystem of entrepreneurs and VCs that create this virtuous circle. So
yeah, that sounds great. So I guess I think you mentioned it already, but that this is not just another Regis office, rentable office space. So there's actually a selection process. So it's actually not I say elite, but it's a selected group of companies that get in here. So what's the process there? Do you just have to submit an application and go through an interview process?
Yeah, it's amazingly simple, and it's even, if you go on the Station F website, they even themselves tell you that it takes 20 minutes writing an application of what you do, and how you want to do it. Then, of course, you go through a interview process. There's 100 people that are habilitated. You say that? Habilitated? No.
Yeah, this is a committee, right? There's
100 people that are allowed to
evaluate, let's say.
To evaluate, exactly, the different projects, and for so that's the founders program, and for the fighters program, they only require you to have 1 year committed to Station F, and it's free, and it's for people that are very talented but don't have the money, don't have nothing for them. And it creates sort of a brain drain towards France, so it totally makes sense,
Yes.
And that's why they call it the Fighters Program. So, but it's and the Founders Program, which is the more normal one, usual one, is the application is purely in English, to go back to your question initially, and the Fighters Program is in English and in French, so that even French talents can attend, who have not had maybe the best education, can also apply.
Yes. Okay, good. So let's go to just the last question. Clearly, this is not we're not doing a promotional video here for Station F.
No.
What's the relevance or what's the significance? You know, back to the start of our conversation about the economic situation in France and this, you know, whole move and pro-business and so forth. So how would you wrap all that together to say Station F is sort of indicative of the new attitude in France, or what? Just to wrap up the conversation today.
Yeah. So basically, Macron. You know, sometimes politicians are just talk. Macron's making it happen. So he said, "I want France to be a startup nation. I want it to be pro-business." And basically, between what happened with Brexit, a new president with a new vision. He's 40 years old. We've never had such a young president ever. He's making it happen with those specific laws, with workspaces everywhere. Station F is a workspace. It's just a super prestigious, enormous incubator, but it's a working state, and these little stations are opening everywhere in all the cities. So basically, the whole country is now looking and admiring, a little bit like the U.S. It was not the case before. We're an old country, more typically oriented towards the states and public sector. But now things are, changing, and more people are looking into launching their businesses. You're not seen as an adventurist as before, but rather, admired as someone that wants to create jobs, which is, given the high level of unemployment rate we had before, that's why it's really seen as positive for the country.
Yeah, very good.
I don't know if I answered correctly to your question, but
yeah, it's clear. No, it wraps up well. We thank you very much for giving us the overview. I mean, it's some specific information, there. It's always valuable to have somebody with their feet on the ground. The French market very well. You've lived there, but you also have an international experience, so you can speak to a lot of the people on the call today, and just in general, a lot of our clients that may look at the video, or potential clients. Great. So thank you very much, Yvan. It was a very interesting session. And
you're very welcome, and welcome to France.
Yeah, thank you. We'll hopefully launch our 6th project with you here shortly.
Yes.
We've done 5 in the past 10 years. Good. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Yvan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.